I hope you are doing well at your home. So, today we are going to start the reading from page number 34. This is our second last video of this chapter. So, let's start the reading. This man, he thought, there is no reason under heaven why he should live. Unconsciously, this thought made him ruthless and he proceeded swiftly. In his dream, the man moaned, but Sadao paid no heed except to mutter at him. Groan, he muttered. Groan if you like. I am not doing this for my own pleasure. In fact, I do not know why I am doing it. The door opened and there was Hannah again. Where is the anesthetic? She asked in a clear voice. Sadao motioned with his chin. It is as well that you came back, he said. This fellow is beginning to stir. She had the bottle and some cotton in her hand. But how shall I do it? She asked. Simply saturate the cotton and hold it near his nostrils. Sadao replied without delaying for one moment the intricate detail of his work. When he breathes badly, move it away a little. When he breathes badly, move it away a little. She crouched close to the sleeping face of the young American. It was a piteously thin face, she thought, and the lips were twisted. The man was suffering whether he knew it or not. Watching him, she wondered if the stories they heard sometimes of the sufferings of prisoners were true. They came like flickers of rumor, told by word of mouth and always contradicted. In the newspaper, the reports were always that wherever the Japanese armies went, the people received them gladly, with cries of joy at their liberation. But sometimes she remembered such men as General Takima, who at home beat his wife cruelly, though no one mentioned it now that he had fought so victorious a battle in Manchuria. If a man like that could be so cruel to a woman in his power, would he not be cruel to one like this, for instance? She hoped anxiously that this young man had not been tortured. It was at this moment that she observed deep red scars on his neck, just under the ear. Those scars, she murmured, lifting her eyes to Sadao, but he did not answer. At this moment he felt the tip of his instrument strike against something hard, dangerously. Dangerously near the kidney. All thought left him. He felt only the purest pleasure. He probed with his fingers delicately, firmly with every atom of his human body. His old American professor of anatomy had seen to that knowledge. Ignorance of the human body is the surgeon's cardinal sin. Since he had thundered at his classes year after year, to operate without his complete knowledge of the body as if you had made it, anything less than that is murder. It is not quiet at the kidney, my friend, Sadao murmured. It was his habit to murmur to the patient when he forgot himself in an operation. My friend, he always called his patients, and so now he did, forgetting that this was his enemy. Then quickly, with the cleanest and most precise of incisions, the bullet was out. Finally, the bullet was out. The man quivered, but he was still unconscious. Nevertheless, he muttered a few English words. Guts, he muttered, choking. They got my guts. Sadao, Hannah cried sharply. Hush, Sadao said. Hush, Sadao said. The man sank again into silence so profound that Sadao took up his wrist. hating the touch of it. Yes, there was still a pulse so faint, so feeble, but enough. If he wanted the man to live, to give hope. But certainly I do not want this man to live, he thought. No more anesthetics, he told Hannah. He turned as swiftly as though he had never paused in from his medicines. He chose a small vial and from it filled a hypodermic and thrust it into the patient's left arm. Then, putting down the needle, he took the man's wrist again. The pulse under his fingers fluttered once or twice and then grew stronger. This man will live in spite of all, he said to Hannah and sighed. The young man woke, so weak, his blue eyes so terrified when he perceived where he was, that Hannah felt compelled to apologize. She herself served him, for none of the servants would enter the room. When she came in the first time, she saw him summon his small strength to be prepared for some fearful thing. Don't be afraid, she begged him softly. How come you speak English? He gasped. I was a long time in America, she replied. She saw that he wanted to reply to that, but he could not, and so she knelt and fed him gently from the porcelain spoon. He ate unwillingly, but still he ate. Now you will soon be strong, she said, not liking him and yet moved to comfort him. He did not answer. When Sadao came in the third day after the operation, he found the young man sitting up, his face bloodless with the effort. Lie down, Sadao cried. Do you want to die? He forced the man down gently and strongly and examined the wound. You may kill yourself if you do this sort of thing, he scolded. What are you doing to do with me? What are you going to do with me? The boy muttered. He looked just now barely 17. Are you going to hand me over? For a moment Sadao did not answer. He finished his examination and then pulled the silk quilt over the man. I do not know myself what I shall do with you, he said. I ought of course to give you to the police. You are a prisoner of war. No, do not tell me anything. He put up his hand as he saw the young man was about to speak. Do not even tell me your name unless I ask it. They looked at each other for a moment, and then the young man closed his eyes and turned his face to the wall. Okay, he whispered, his mouth a bitter line. Outside the door, Hannah was waiting for Sadao. He saw at once that she was in trouble. Sadao, Yumi tells me the servants feel they cannot stay if we hide this man here anymore, she said. She tells me that they are saying that you and I were so long in America that we have forgotten to think of our own country first. They think we like Americans. It is not true, Sadao said harshly. Americans are our enemies, but I have been trained not to let a man die if I can help it. The servants cannot understand that, she said anxiously. No, he agreed. Neither seemed able to say more, and somehow the household dragged on. The servants grew more watchful. Their Kotse was as careful as ever, but their eyes were cold upon the pair to whom they were hired. It is clear what our master ought to do, the old gardener said one morning. He had worked with flowers all his life, and had been a specialist too in moss. For Sadao's father, he had made one of the finest moss gardens in Japan, sweeping the bright green carpet constantly so that not a leaf of a pine needle marred the velvet of its surface. My old master's son knows very well what he ought to do, he now said, pinching a bud from a bush as he spoke. When the man was so near death, why did he not let him bleed? That Young master is so proud of his skills to save life that he saves any life, the cook said contemptuously. She split a fowl's neck skillfully and held the fluttering bird and let its blood flow into the roots of a wisteria vine. Blood is the best of fertilizers, and the old gardener would not let her waste a drop of it. It is the children of whom we must think, Yumi said sadly. What will be their fate if their father is condemned as a traitor? They did not try to hide what they said from the ears of Hannah. As she stood arranging the day's flowers in the veranda nearby, and she knew they spoke on purpose that she might hear. That they were right she knew too in most of her being. But there was another part of her which she herself could not understand. It was not sentimental liking of the prisoner, she had come to think of him as a prisoner. She had not liked him even yesterday when he had said in his impulsive way, "Anyway, let me tell you that my name is Tom." She had only bowed her little distant bow. She saw hurt in his eyes, but she did not wish to assuage it. Indeed, he was a great trouble in this house. As for Sadao, every day he examined the wound carefully. The last stitches had been pulled out this morning, and the young man would in a fortnight be nearly as well as ever. Sadao went back to his office and carefully typed a letter to the chief of police reporting the whole matter. On the 21st day of February, an escaped prisoner was washed up on the shore in front of my house. So far, he typed, and then he opened a secret drawer of his desk and put the unfinished report into it. On the seventh day after that, two things happened. In the morning, the servants left together, their belongings tied in large square cotton kerchiefs. When Hannah got up in the morning, nothing was done, the house not cleaned, and the food not prepared, and she knew what it meant. She was dismayed and even terrified, but her pride as a mistress would not allow her to show it. Instead, she inclined her head gracefully when they appeared before her in the kitchen, and she paid them off and thanked them for all that they had done for her. They were crying, but she did not cry. The cook and the gardener had served Sadao since he was a little boy in his father's house. And Yumi cried because of the children. She was so grieving that after she had gone, she ran back to Hannah. If the baby misses me too much, If the baby misses me too much tonight, send for me. I am going to my own house and you know where it is. Thank you, Hannah said, smiling. But she told herself she would not send for Yumi, however the baby cried. She made the breakfast and Sadao helped with the children. Neither of them spoke of the servants beyond the fact that they were gone. But after Hannah had taken morning food to the prisoner, she came back to Sadao. "Why is it we cannot see clearly what we ought to do?" she asked him. "Even the servants see more clearly than we do. Why are we different from other Japanese?" Sadao did not answer, but a little later he went into the room where the prisoner was and said briskly, "Today you may get up on your feet. I want you to stay up only 5 minutes at a time. Tomorrow you may try it twice as long. It would be well that you get back your strength as quickly as possible." He saw the flicker of terror on the young face that was still very pale. "Okay," the boy murmured. Evidently he was determined to say more. "I feel I ought to thank you, doctor, for having saved my life." "Don't thank me too early," Sadao said coldly. He saw the flicker of terror again in the boy's eyes, terror as unmistakable as an animal's. The scars on his neck were crimson for a moment. Those scars, what were they? Sadao did not ask. In the afternoon, the second thing happened. Hannah, working hard on unaccustomed labor, saw a messenger come to the door in official uniform. Her hands went weak and she could not draw her breath. The servants must have told already. She ran to Sadao, gasping, unable to utter a word, but by then the messenger had simply followed her through the garden, and there he stood. She pointed at him helplessly. Sadao looked up from his book. He was in his office, the other partition of which was thrown open to the garden for the southern sunshine. "What is it?" he asked the messenger, and then he rose. Seeing the man's uniform, "You are to come to the palace." The man said, "The old general is in pain again." "Oh," Hannah breathed. Is that all?" "All?" the messenger exclaimed. "Is that not enough?" "Indeed it is," she replied. "I am very sorry." When Sadao came to say goodbye, she was in the kitchen, but doing nothing. The children were asleep, more exhausted from her fright than from work. "I thought they come to arrest you," she said. He gazed down into her anxious eyes. "I must get rid of this man for your sake," he said in distress. "Somehow I must get rid of him." Sadao goes to see the general. So now, student, this is the second phase where when the messenger came and informed that the general is ill. So now the story is switching towards general's palace instead. Sadao goes to see the general. "Of course," the general said weakly, "I understand fully, but that is because I once took a degree in Princeton, so few Japanese have." "I care nothing for the man, Excellency," Sadao said, "but having operated on him with such success—" "Yes, yes," the general said, "it only makes me feel you more indispensable to me. Evidently, you can save anyone. You are so skilled. You say you think I can stand one more such attack as I have had today?" "Not more than one," Sadao said. "Then certainly I can allow nothing to happen to you." The general said, "It only makes me feel you more indispensable to me. Evidently, you can save anyone. You are so skilled. You say you think I can stand one more such attack as I have had today?" "Not more than one," Sadao said. "Then certainly I can allow nothing to happen to you," the general said with anxiety. His long, pale Japanese face became expressionless, which meant that he was in deep thought. "You cannot be arrested," the general said, closing his eyes. "Suppose you were condemned to death and the next day I have I had to have my operation." There are other surgeons, Excellency," Sadao suggested. "None I trust," the general replied. "The best ones have been trained by Germans and would consider the operation successful even if I died. I do not care for their point of view." He sighed. "It seems a pity that we cannot better combine the German ruthlessness with the American sentimentality. Then you could turn your prisoner over to execution, and yet I could be sure you would not murder me while I was unconscious." The general laughed. He had an unusual sense of humor. "As a Japanese, could you not combine these two foreign elements?" he asked. Sadao smiled. "I am not quite sure," he said, "but for your sake I would be willing to try, Excellency." Well, so students, what happened till here? Now, the operation has been done successfully. Now, what's happening? The operation had done. Sadao and Hannah look after the American. Sadao and Hannah nurse the American. His wound was healing and he was gaining strength. But the servants were becoming restless. The gardener felt Sadao should have allowed the American to bleed to death. It means like servants were thinking and they were wishing that they should not help the American. Instead, they should bleed him to death. But the cook felt that Sadao was so proud of his skill that he would save an enemy. They spoke on purpose. They let Hannah know their revulsion about the American. They wished the American was handed over to the police without any further delay. It means all what they were wishing is that the person was to be handed to the police. At last, the servants decided to leave Sadao's house. Now what happened? The servants left the house. They did not work that morning, so Hannah paid them their wages. They cried as they left. The gardener had been there since he was a boy. Yumi was attached to children. Hannah held back her tears. Now, what is happening, students, here? Because they were afraid, and also they were very patriotic, so they hated American, and they wanted Sadao and Hannah to not help the American. So which is why they left, although they were also very connected towards the children. Yumi was very connected to the children, so she cried. All the servants cried, but somehow Hannah managed to hold her tears. She sat with the dignity of a mistress. Now she had to do all her household work by herself. As all the servants are gone, so she had to do the work by herself. Hannah wanted Sadao to get rid of the American quickly. Sadao promised he would soon do something about it. Now in the evening, a messenger in uniform arrived. Hannah was paralyzed with fright. Now a messenger came in the uniform, and Hannah was surprised. Why Hannah was surprised? Can you tell me? Hannah was surprised because she thought that the servants complained about the American they were hiding in their house. She felt the servant must have told the police about the American, and the messenger had come to arrest Sadao. But her fears were unfounded. The old general had been suffering from an ailment. Sadao had been treating him. Now the general was in pain, and he had sent for Sadao. Now she came back to her consciousness when she came to know that the messenger had come only to inform Sadao that the general whom he has been treating is ill and needs his help. Later, the general trusted Sadao. He knew he might need to be operated upon. That is why Sadao had not been sent away with the troops. Sadao told the general about the American. The general told him that he was indispensable, so he could not be arrested. But he suggested a way out. He told Sadao that he would send 2 of his private assassins to his house to kill the American quietly and remove the body. Now, from here onwards, we will be discussing it in the next video. Like, what the general is suggesting Sadao is quite different. So this we'll be discussing it in the next video. So before ending my video, start writing down the difficult words. Number 1 means our first difficult word is crouched. Crouched means bent low. Piteously means pitiable. Next word is twisted. Twisted means round one another. Next word is flinkers. Flinkers means unsteady light. Unsteady light. Our next word is contradicted. Contradicted means something which is denied. Our next word is liberation, which means freedom. Cruelly. Next word is cruelly, which means mercilessly. Which means mercilessly. Our next word is victorious. Next word is victorious. Victorious means triumph. Next word is for instance. For instance. It means for example. Next word is tortured. Tortured means inflicted pain. Our next word is probe. Probe means to investigate, to ask. Our next word is cardinal. Cardinal means chief. Cardinal means something which is related to heart as well. Well, our next word is precise. Precise means exact. Next word is incisions. Incisions means cuts. Next word is quivered. Quivered means tremble. Quivered means trembled. Gut, we know, intestine. Next word is profound. Profound means deep, something which is deep. Next word is feeble. Feeble means weak, dull. Our next word is hypodermic. Hypodermic means introduced beneath the skin. Introduced beneath the skin. Next word is vial. Vial means a container, a small glass bottle in which blood or samples are to be taken. Our next word is perceived. Perceived means observed. Next word is compelled. Compelled, it means forced. Next word is gasped. Gasped, it means caught breath in surprise. When you caught breath in surprise. Next word is comfort. Comfort means console. Our next word is scold. Scold means to rebuke. Well, our next word is in trouble. In trouble, which means in difficulty or in any hard time. Dragged on means here continue to work. Continue to work. Next word is courtesy. Courtesy, it means politeness. Next word is contemptuously, which means without regard. Without regard. Our next word is condemned. Condemned means found guilty. Next word is traitor. Traitor, which means disloyal. Our next word is assuage. Assuage, which means soften. Next word is fortnight. Fortnight, which means period of 2 weeks. The period of 2 weeks is called as fortnight. Our next word is inclined. Inclined means tilted. Next word is gracefully. Gracefully means decently. Decently. Next word is grieving. Grieving means mournful. Grieving means mournful. Next word is brusquely. Next word is brusquely. It means curtly or bluntly. Next word is flicker. Flicker means unsteady light. It also means unsteady light. Evidently, clearly. Our next word is unaccustomed. Unaccustomed, it means not used to. Next word is gasping, again catching breath. Well, our next word is merely, which means simply. Last but not the least, get rid of, it means to remove, to get free from. Alright, so once again, I would like to say, read these pages by your own also and write down these difficult words. We'll see you tomorrow. Utilize your time. Have a nice day. Thank you.